we're going to talk about where transportation is going. Starting from that end, we have Mikos. He's in charge of strategic development for Car2Go. That's, for those of you who don't know it, a one-way car-sharing company that is in 26 cities and has about 800,000 members. Next to him is Gretchen Effgen. She's the VP of Strategy and Business Development for Zipcar, another car-sharing company in about 400 cities with about 860,000 members. And then in the middle, we have Joseph Kopser from Ride Scout. He's the tallest one, so he gets to be in the shortest chair. And they are at an exciting time right now because they are, for those of you who don't know, a ride planning app that has just launched in many, many more cities. So they're now in 69 cities, pulling together about 300 different transportation options, telling you how to get around. And next to me is Taco Carlier. He brought the remote control bike that he'll show us later. So here's the scene that, as I see it, that I'd like to just set the stage for the conversation, right? America is a car country. We've, as a country, we've always loved cars. It was the American dream. It was mobility. It was freedom. You could get to work. You could date the girl or guy across town. And then, somewhere around middle of 2000s, car use peaks. It's just less popular. The vehicles miles traveled per person goes down. Car sales per capita go down, and the trend seems to reverse. Right at the time that cities become more popular. It becomes part of the American dream to want to have, go from a fast car and a white picket fence to have a walkable neighborhood and good transit access. And this all comes as a bunch of different technological developments coalesced, right? It's the data that the transit agencies are now making available so that we know where at least some of our trains are at any given moment. And it's the ability to put GPS in our cars and in our bikes so that we can have app-enabled taxis that you'll see where they are, or bike shares where a company can track where they go. And so what we end up with is hundreds and hundreds of ways to get around. And I actually find it kind of overwhelming. I don't know if you do too. So to Joseph, you're collecting all of these into your app, Ride Scout. I say I want to go from my house to here, and it tells me you have 2 transit options, 4 taxi options, 3, 1 bike share option, and actually it says multiple bike share options because there's different docks around. And I just go, I don't know what to do. Are all of these options good? Is it good to have so many choices?
Well, it is good. It's good to have choices, but it's better to make sense out of it. And what we're doing at Ride Scout, if I may just explain a little deeper, the whole issue is that there is enough existing infrastructure already out there in the world to move us all around. The problem is, especially in the United States, we became so car ownership centric that when we're driving our cars to and from work, 76% of the cars on the road only have 1 person in them. So what we're trying to do is let people know there are so many existing services, whether it's car share, whether it's bike share, whether it's traditional transit, bus and rail, or whether it's all the new stuff that's there. You have options, but what we're doing is a 2-part step. So the first thing that you see in Ride Scout when you download it today is, as Alex pointed out, you're going to see a lot of options, especially in places like Brooklyn and New York City. You're going to see lots of ways to get around. And you can sort it by time or you can sort it by cost. But where we're going next, now that we've assembled 300 plus ride providers in 69 cities across USA and Canada, the next big move that we're doing this summer is using the same DNA machine learning that you already use with your music, internet, radio, whether it be Pandora or Spotify or iHeartRadio or Slacker. We're using your choices to build your profiles to give you what you want most often, and then adding in the layers like traffic, adding in the layers like weather. Because if it's too hot, you're not going to want to walk 8 blocks. You probably do want the Greenboro taxi just to come pick you up. So that's really, I think, to your question, Alex, which is options alone can be overwhelming, but you've got to organize them for people in a way that makes sense. And that's what we're doing at Ride Scout.
And this is a particularly difficult problem, right? Because the more choices you have, the more computing power you need, the more brain power you need, and then the more frankly, moral choices you're making, right? So for the car sharing companies, you guys are very much motivated, both companies, from a sort of moral point of view that individual car ownership is actually bad. Maybe I'm willing to say that and you're not exactly, but that we should be living a life in which we are putting these the space that goes to cars to better use. And so let's start with you, Gretchen, and in Boston. You're based in Boston. You're in 400 cities, but that's where you roll out it has your most of your love, right, or the most love. What kinds of success are you seeing, right? I know that there's a lot of stats that say if you use car sharing, you can a family often goes from 2 cars to 1 once they sign up for Zipcar. What's the latest on your numbers?
Sure. So one of the things that we're pretty proud of in the city of Boston, we showed over, actually the city demonstrated this from 2008 to 2012. At a time when the city population was growing 4% year over year, they actually experienced a 50,000 unit decline in the number of personally registered vehicles. And car sharing at that time was really just starting to hit, some real penetration within the marketplace. And our net membership growth in the city of Boston at that time was 40,000 new members.
So basically saying that as the city is growing, and normally we would expect more cars to be sold or to be owned.
Yep.
Boston saw a decline of 50,000 cars owned, while you saw 40,000 new members.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I think, it's important to say, Zipcar was never anti-car, but what they were anti was this a personally owned vehicle sits idle 99% of the day. It just doesn't make a lot of sense. And so if you look at Zipcar's utilization on a typical day is 40%, and the weekends it's, usually 100. So you have as many as 15 people sharing one vehicle, and if you just think about what that does for parking in a city, if you can take 15 personally owned vehicles and condense that down to 1, just think of the streets you live on. If you took 15 cars and made it 1, that opens up a lot of space.
Quick question: what is when you do your surveys of why people sign up? Do you have like a top 1 or 2 reasons? Is it cost? Is it convenience?
Convenience and optionality. It's
choice,
the ability
right?
to have access to a car without having to own one.
Yeah. So to you, Mike, of Car2Go, I feel like choice is the rising ethos. It's sort of the big flag under which a lot of these new options are being offered. You guys are one-way car sharing, which actually, if you would have described to me, would it be possible, I would have thought, no way, how are you going to just let people leave cars on the street? But of course, it's GPS technology, smartphone apps that enable it. So I'm curious how you see this as in the grander ecosystem of all the other options to have one-way car sharing.
Yeah. So it fits in. I think choice is,
Like a car
to kind of
can fit in
fall
with transit.
back to the greater conversation of having choice and what are cities' goals, what are our goals to reduce parking congestion, reduce cars on the road, and to have these options from bike share to taxis to ride shares to all these different options that give people sense of what we all wanted before with the car, the freedom. And no one's going to give up a car if they don't feel they have that sense of freedom. And for us, we took a different spin on it. And it's a more complex spin when you have to talk to the cities and work with the cities. And we work with every city we're in to create permits to have access to on-street parking, residential, and meters, so people can take a car from point A to point B in a public parking space, which just adds flexibility to the route for people from that standpoint.
And what's happening there, and what's happening with the Lyfts and the Ubers and a lot of the services that you're putting into Ride Scout, is we're moving from looking at a map to being the blue dot at the center of the universe all the time, and from transportation infrastructure as a set in stone map that we live around. Right? We decide where we're going to live because it will be easy to commute to another place along the Red Line in D.C. or along the 2 train in New York or whatever it is. And now what you're kind of saying, right, is the car can play a role in that, but it can shift that notion of transportation as fixed to transportation infrastructure as malleable. And I don't know. I guess I should confess that I have a few moral. I'm not super happy with being the blue dot at the center of the universe. Like, I feel like it does something to our brains that isn't so healthy, actually, in a way. I don't know. I see a lot of nodding. I don't know.
The idea for us and these options are integrating together, and Ride Scout does a great job of that when you talk of intermodal routing, and not any one of these options probably satisfies everybody's need at a particular point in time. And Joseph's idea of moving forward and looking at preferences for people and taking weather into account and taking traffic into account, from a cost perspective, public transit's great, but then once you get there and you still have a 15-block walk, do you want to jump in a car to go because it's raining, or do you want to take a bike share because it's a nice day, or you need to go to the grocery store and you want to take a zip car because you're going to go to Home Depot? I mean, every moment you have the opportunity to be presented different options, which creates the ultimate freedom where you can release the car and hopefully open up congestion and parking and all these things. So when you talk about everybody on the stage here, I think there's just a different part that it plays.
Right, so we have to start to accept there isn't just a transit agency, there's a transit ecosystem. And in New York, if you look outside the hotel, right, bikes are rising, especially in Williamsburg, and we have a fancy remote control bike here, Taco Carlier. You want to tell us why you think that making the bike high-tech will actually change how people get around a city?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's funny. You say it's America's the ultimate car country. It's also the perfect country for cycling. I love cycling in New York, even more as I do in Amsterdam.
Yeah, you been to Midtown?
Yes, I can imagine what you say, but the streets are wide, and you have to, get used to the city. But if you know your way around, it's perfect for cycling, and that's what we want to do at Vermoof. Our mission is to make better bicycles for commuting in cities. And we are an Amsterdam-based company. We tried to integrate as much parts as possible in the bike. So we have integrated lights, integrated locks, all kind of stuff. And this is our newest project. It's actually a prototype. It will be on the market next month. And it's the first, we call it hybrid bike, as you can use it as an electric bike, and you can also as a normal bike. So it's a pedal-assisted electric bike with GPS, GSM inside, so if it's stolen, you know where it is. And it has a remote control, which we thought was very useful when you came out of a bar to click it on. But I found out that it's very useful too when I go riding with my, cycling around with my girlfriend. I gave her the electric bike, but I keep the remote control. And so if she's a little bit too far ahead, I just put the bike off, and then I can keep up with her.
Okay, but your premise here is that more people would ride and then a bunch of different blanks. And one of them is if they could go faster without so much work, right? And that's why an electric bike is useful. It costs about $3,000 though, right?
Yeah, it's at the moment it's $3,000, but the prices are.
Whereas I intentionally bought a bike that was about $300
yeah.
because I was pretty sure it was going to get stolen.
Yes.
Right. So
that's funny that it's a huge issue, especially in Amsterdam, but probably all over the world. And I think bike theft is a much bigger issue than just the irritation of your bike lost. It's also about an environmental issue. People buy crappy bikes because they're afraid to get stolen. And also in Amsterdam, we have this big junk bicycle problem. There are bikes stored everywhere, which most of them are bikes that don't have an owner anymore. So if we can beat this bike theft, people will buy better bikes because they're less afraid that it's got stolen. And if they buy better bikes, they will definitely cycle more because it's better to ride a good bike than a non-good bike. So what we try to do is find solutions to beat bicycle theft. We started this with integrating the GPS GSM, so you can find it back like Find My iPhone, Find My Bike.
Does it work?
It works, yeah. We have delivered now 100 the first series in December, and the first model got stolen within 1 month in Florida. It actually got stolen twice. I don't know this guy, but I don't know what he's doing, but it got stolen twice, and the police managed to recover it both times.
So he goes and he says, "Look, police, my bike got stolen, but I know where it is.
Yes.
Please come with me and get it back."
Yeah, and I know that this guy was lucky because the police actually helped. In the future, we want to make this like more like a license, like a car to go in Uber. So you get a license on the bike, and if it gets stolen, we'll together. I fly to America personally to get it back. Now I will join with a security company or something to get it back.
You know, I never even bothered to go to the police when my bikes got stolen, so I don't know if they would have gone with me.
Yeah, definitely, but that has to change. The police has to take this problem seriously because it's more than just an irritation.
Okay, so let's to all of you, and we'll take questions. I don't know if there'll be a mic or something, but we'll open this up to questions in just a little bit. I want to hear what you think is the ideal, right? What is the way to get around in a city? If we're going to say that the thing against which we are comparing our dream is the car, which was one mode that got everybody everywhere, right? It was one thing, everybody just knew their way around town after a while, and that's what they did. So we're replacing that now. None of you work for a transit agency, so I'm assuming none of you are going to say perfect 100% public transit. But what is the ideal now to get everyone from place to place?
Well, I'd love to start taking that, which is you only need or use what you needed for that moment, and then when you're done, you return it back to the economy.
So no ownership.
What's that?
No ownership.
Think of it as lease 2.0, because even if you have a car at your house and you think you own that car, I'll tell you, actually, the bank owns that car. You're just making payments, which is an extended version of a lease. Then there's the more conventional lease, and then there's the even smaller lease, if you will, and then even minute by minute lease as much of a cargo. So I'd like for people just to reimagine the definition of ownership. Only use what you need. And I'll also say that I'm making this prediction now that public transit, the government itself, is going to get out of the business of transit, because the only reason why we got into it, and this is for another story, another topic, another day, is because the privatized motorized transit of the 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s became so woefully performing because everyone moved to the automobile and everyone moved to the interstate system, and they wanted their 2.5 cars, that the companies just got out of the business and the public sector had to step in. I predict the public sector will be out of public transit probably in a generation or so.
So we're going to go back to the era, right? The subway was built by private. The New York City subway was built by private investment, right? And
That's right.
You're saying it got run out of business because cars got so popular. And
the
now cars
deck
will get
was
so
stacked.
unpopular
Right.
again that all right, that's a bold prediction. All right, I'll take other bold predictions here. Otherwise, I'm going to start asking for some trade secrets. That's my next one, is how you make your algorithms work behind the scenes.
Right. I don't know if it's a bold prediction, but to answer your original question of what's that utopian sort of version, and your comment on the blue dot has kind of had me reflecting on it. I think if you think about sort of I guess I'll say the old version of the American dream, and we certainly hear at Zipcar that from our millennial population that they don't define the American dream in the same way that their parents did and grandparents did. So I think that vision, and actually if you Google images of the American dream, you see these sort of 1950s-esque drawings of the picket fenced house and the car in the driveway and the 2.2 kids and the dog. But if you think about in that life, you were the blue dot because your car was in your driveway. And so you took it, you went where you needed to go and came back. So it was the blue dot. So the comment on when we become the blue dot, I actually am not so sure that might be a bad, like it is maybe the modern day version of the car in the garage. But I agree with Joseph on use what you need when you need it and then release it back for everyone else so that we can have more efficient asset use and not so much idle waste in the system.
So what kind of city does this enable? Right? Because to me, what it does is it says it's easier to gentrify. You can go to a neighborhood where there's bad transit, and now all of a sudden these new high-tech smartphone apps will just generate new modes of transportation, right? Whether it's all of a sudden you get 10 new places to park a zip car, or like a new bus company that's launching in Boston this past week called Bridge says we can launch a bus route in a day. If enough people sign up and say they want it from here to here, they'll just do it, right? So that's to your argument that the government will get out of public transit, but it also means that the long and lengthy, very un-startup-y process that is designed for equity and fairness and, in some cases, environmentalism, won't say where a new bus route goes, and it will enable a different kind of city planning and growth. And I'm not sure if that's good or bad. Is this something that you guys think about as part of your businesses?
The static public transit system in most of the cities, there's always a core that's really good where people have tended to gravitate. Here, Manhattan's probably a good example. But as you get out to the boroughs, what supports, and in Brooklyn, again, maybe another good example, it starts to peel off. And we've had conversations with the borough community boards and how some of the transit, as they get further and further into the borough, is worse and worse. So the zip cars, the car-to-goes, if they can get City Bike out there, maybe more economical, maybe to Joseph's point, privatized, people can get out there and have the flexibility that they would have elsewhere, at least to get to the train station, subway, or to go in between boroughs without having to use a train.
And so do you find that the usage for car-to-go tends to be at the edge of the subway more? Like, is it increased, or is it mostly downtown? I mean, my experiences with car-to-goes have all been downtown.
Sure.
So I live in a well transited area, so I have not had cause to go to the end of the line and then take the car-to-go the next 15 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Do you find?
So I think it's an evolution
spike there?
From a couple pieces. One, the downtown certainly sees early adoption, just because people already don't have cars. So I think as you spread out, you're looking for people to more and more commit to not having a car. So I think it's an evolution over time as the multitude of options. So it can't just be car-to-go. It needs to be a zip car. It needs to be a bike share. It needs to be Uber, sidecar, Lyft, whoever else in mass, so that you're not just relying on one or two options. You can't give up your car. Most people won't, or a second car if they don't have a multitude of options. So I think it'll be an evolution, and I think you're seeing it but it's going to take some time.
And now you put in, a very friendly mention there that car-to-go and Zipcar would be symbiotically together as options. Maybe not just because you're on this panel, but I can't help but think that Uber and Lyft are in a vicious battle right now. Like, my Facebook feed is filled with Uber ads that are essentially denigrating Lyft and trying to, for some reason, I think they think I'm a Lyft driver because they keep asking me to quit driving for Lyft and to go drive for Uber. But is it car sharing is just like a happier place? Zipcar, you're looking into one-way car sharing, so that will put you guys in competition. Is car sharing just a sort of friendlier sector?
I think we have a lot of we're complementary and we're substitutes for each other. I think what we're looking to do at Zipcar is make it even easier to live car-free in the cities where we operate and all the towns where we operate. And to the extent that we can cover off more use cases and not have the constraint of needing to return the vehicle from the pod where you picked it up, we'd like to be able to do that. I think we also have, some use cases that we can serve around vehicle variety, because we do have cargo vans and things with larger sizes that don't operate in the car-to-go model. So I think, car-to-go and Zipcar have been copacetic in all the markets where we coexist. And I think from our point of view, the more folks who are living car-free in a city, the bigger the total pie. And so there's room for both models, to exist, is my point of view.
And the pie is huge. If you were to add up the total inventory of cars that they each have, I don't even think it scratches the surface of the 238 million cars and trucks out there in the United States. So we're all going to benefit. All these services will expand. Every mode share will get bigger as people realize, wait, I probably don't need to buy a car for every member of my family.
Right.
For us too, we would love to work together with those car sharing companies. We have developed a new system without bicycle sharing stations, so you can just drop your bike anywhere you want, and then it's like the car to go for bikes, and that could easily, maybe in the future, fit into companies like Car2Go, so you can choose in the same app whether to take a bike or a car, or even to take your bike in the car. But that's
So
later.
you're talking about the product from VanMoof, which is it's a bike lock that is GPS enabled, and you get a code, so you would know where it is, right? And you would be able to unlock it.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
So you
yeah.
can find the bike and just unlock it with your smartphone.
Which would be great. You wouldn't have to worry about city bike docks that don't work, or you can't tell if they're as long as they work.
Exactly, yeah.
So if anybody has a question from the audience for any of the panelists, all right, already right up front. Yeah.
You started talking about some of the social implications of disrupting transportation by gentrification. To bring it more local, in New York, obviously, cab driving is a major employer. It's $1 million to get a yellow cab medallion, I think, still. For a green cab, it's 30, 40,000, I think. It's a major job base. I guess I want to get a sense of how you feel about the social implications of a democratized sharing economy transportation sector, whether you feel positively or negatively about that. Any thoughts you have?
Let me just repeat that because we're being recorded here. So the question was, to bring it local, the taxi industry is a major employer. It can often have extremely high cost of entry. Buying a medallion is $1 million. So what are what are your thoughts on the social impact of a sharing economy in which that all gets disrupted?
I think Joseph kind of alluded to this fact earlier when, and maybe we talk about the pie. And we don't necessarily have direct competition with taxi because you're still driving yourself. It's maybe a different use case, whether it's speed, whether it's you want to do something on your way. But the idea with options that you bring more people into the system, hopefully ultimately a little bit to Gretchen's point too, is that everybody benefits. If there's more options, more people get out of cars, you now start to open up bigger benefits to everybody involved because there's no perfect one use case that's going to solve all the problems, or Joseph wouldn't have created Ride Scout.
But to the society piece, though, I think there was another layer in your question I want to get at, specifically the drivers and their livelihood. Regardless of all these new services we have, regardless of any of it, cab driving has been around for about 350 years. When it was first invented or quantified in London, actually started issuing permits. We, as a society, have got to think hard, though, about our cab drivers and that industry, because it's about 15 years away from extinction. And if you want a historical example, go find the elevator operator unions. They don't exist anymore. It used to be like a real licensed and trained science to be able to raise and lower elevators because it was very hard. Somebody came in, put an automatic button board, boom, that entire industry was gone. It's going to happen because the automobile and the driverless automobile. So I just want to add that to that even more complicated question you just asked. So.
All right, yeah.
So I don't know. This is really far out, but say you guys are super successful, right? Like one of the things that's going to happen is demand would drop precipitously for vehicles, which would mean, if you got even vaguely successful, right, and drop back car rates by 50%, like you would definitely lose several major automakers, right? And so if that happened, a part of what the outcome of that would be a dramatic increase in the price of vehicles, which I guess on some level would help increase the argument for car sharing and other forms of sharing, but on the flip side would also just brutalize your margins, perhaps. I don't know. Is that a thing that you guys are thinking around about eventually? Because there's an economy built around a lot of cars selling now, and that may go away.
Well, I think the automakers.
Quick
are-
recap of it for the recording is if car sharing takes off, or all of this takes off so much that it leads to fewer cars being made, such that it increases the price of cars being made, how does that affect your model, and how are you thinking about the impact on the car industries?
Right. So I think we've seen in Zipcar's history, we've been around for 14 years now. And in the beginning, when we started, the automakers sort of looked at this car sharing thing as kind of this hippie fringe movement, and isn't that kind of charming? And then they saw that we started to get some growth and some scale, and they thought, well, now we're not so sure we like that because it means it's taking away from sales. And so it was sort of this, oh, isn't it cute and charming, to we're not so sure we like that, to then all of a sudden their macroeconomists and think tanks and futurists were all saying, this is the way the world is going, and we need to figure out how to grapple with this. And so we've seen automakers enter our space with Daimler with Car2Go, BMW with Drive Now, Ford is in the business in Europe. A lot of the OEMs are looking at this space, and they're trying to figure out how do they go from not just building products, but building products and services that are automotive related. And I think the reality is, if you look at, just to cite some of the data that Alex Partners put out a couple of months ago, if we had the same rate of eligible drivers getting their driver's license today as we did in the year 2000, the year 2000 is not that long ago, there would be 6 million more drivers, licensed drivers on the roads. 6 million people have opted to not get a driver's license. So that's not something that Zipcar alone is impacting. That is a much bigger macro societal shift that the OEMs are starting to figure out how do they need to work with it.
So I think maybe also is an IBM kind of a case that could stand to inform what car companies might do, right? They went from selling machines to selling consulting services about machines while making some extremely high-tech machines to use in that process, right? And Ford calls itself a mobility company now, right, instead of a car company. Yeah. So it's sort of one of the innovate or die slogan is landing on their doorstep. I'll keep taking questions, but I have more. I'm curious about how much safety actually comes in as a concern and how you plan for that. I think that people driving anyway, they're driving, they're not sort of increasing it, but every time a decision is made about where to place something or where to move people, cars are dangerous. We're now in a Vision Zero city trying to reduce traffic fatalities. What is the role of a ride-sharing company or a cycling company or an app in contributing to that grander societal goal? Even though I'm not at all putting it on you guys that you're a cause of it. It's just if everybody's playing a part now, right? Instead of going to the Department of Transportation and saying fix it, the private companies have to play some part too. So I'm just curious how that fits in. I figured Taco would just say everybody should ride bikes.
This isn't maybe a solving of the problem, and there's probably further to go where the responsibility lies through that. And Car2Go and Zipcar, and at least on the car share side, provides a level of insurance. I think the communication and the clarity to what you're getting from either car share, from an Uber, a sidecar, any of these things is the first step. And I think we haven't got even there to know what are you getting in each piece, what is realistically required to provide some level of safety. You're certainly paying for a service. You should have a certain level of expectation that you'll be covered and helped to some degree with that.
Right.
I think the conversation's out there, but
with offering a service comes at least some assumption of assistance when things go wrong.
And I don't think it's always clear at this point amongst the options.
I would say it's certainly not clear, and for a lot of the options, you don't know. That's what you're trading for your discount.
I was just going to take a slightly different spin on that. I think one of the things that we know too within car share models, your cars are newer because they're used so much more frequently. You sort of cycle them out more quickly than a personally owned vehicle. And what that does do from a positive benefit side, if you look at all the smarter technologies that are being built into cars now to provide better visibility when you're backing up, to provide sensor detection if a child or a dog is running towards the car, these cars will be in our cities much more quickly than if we had to wait for the normal life cycle of a personally owned vehicle to expire out of the system. And so I think, we do have an opportunity to bring some of the more forward-thinking safety technologies within vehicles into cities more quickly.
And there's another layer on top of it too, which is if we can get less people owning their own car, that means we need less space. And if you have less space, then we can reverse engineer what we had to do over the last 80 years, which is pretty ridiculous, which was to mix pedestrians and these 4,000-pound pieces of steel that are traveling so fast that even today, we're killing 4,000 pedestrians every year in the United States. Can you imagine that? 4,000 people are still being struck by cars and killed. Then add on to that, 11,000 people are still making really dumb mistakes, driving a car under the influence and dying or killing someone in the process. So another added benefit of a more shared economy style transportation, using only what you need and returning to the marketplaces, we can go back to the days when we had roads for moving vehicles, and streets for moving people and commerce. Broadway is a great example where they've basically started to retake the landscape for people and for engagement and returning it to become a street again, as opposed to mixing cars with people and then terrible things happen out of that.
Okay. Any other questions? So, all right, yeah.
So a question for the car sharing folks. Do you see driverless cars being a part of your model? And if so, when do you think that would happen?
Will driverless cars be a part of your model? And if so, when?
The crystal ball gazing begins. I hope sooner rather than later. The when question is, I mean, I feel like it's, it's such a wild guess at this point. But I think from a user experience standpoint, it would be phenomenal. I'm really excited to think about what that could do. If it's, we strive to have our vehicles within a 5 to 10 minute walk of where our folks live. But you know what? In a city like Boston with the kind of winter we just had, 5 to 10 minutes is not a lot of fun. So it'd be great if you could just hail the car, have it pull right up to where you need to go, and then send it back to its parking spot when you're done. That would be pretty great. I'd love to see it sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I second all that, and I do not have a crystal ball to project it. It's probably a little further out than maybe some of the bold statements people have said in terms of really integrating in. Certainly, I'm sure someone could have something in the next 5 years, but whether it's in mass production, whether it's, there's an expectation our members have as well. I think that ultimately it would be perfect and create a better service, but I think there's an in-between that you have to a learning curve to get that right.
I mean, Car2Go is owned by a car company, Daimler.
This is true.
So, is there any research in the works to?
I have no hidden secrets at the moment that I can put out there.
Okay. Yeah.
I have a question. I don't know who's gonna answer it, but with all the cars and everything, there's so you can get killed by a car. Okay, we know that, but everybody gets killed by a car in traffic because of the pollution. And so, what are the solutions for that? With every one of you, I'm asking because that's not in the debate at all. That the trucks, for example, that's not that we need trucks, of course, we need cars, but we also don't want to die from lung cancer, and that's what's happening, and it's not in the debate. So how is any of you going to contribute to solving that by bringing down the pollution? And it's not the gas, it's the dust.
Right, it's the fine particulate matter. What is anybody up here doing to reduce pollution as a health hazard?
It's
So-
at least in your considerations.
It's in our considerations too, but from a way you may not think of, which is we're a part of the incentives piece. People aren't going to change habits unless they have incentives. And one of the best incentives is good old-fashioned money. And there are a lot of people who receive carbon credits and or direct monies from governments at different levels, specifically the federal government, often case to municipalities for things they're doing to encourage programs like theirs to reduce the number of single occupancy vehicles that are owned by people. And therefore, when they do that, they're getting money in return. So we're able to provide the metrics that let organizations see what they're doing in reducing their carbon footprint overall. And that's one way to do it, because you got to change behavior. And we think money is we don't think it. We acknowledge the fact that money is one of the most powerful ways to do that.
Yeah, the Center for Transportation Research put out a paper on this in 2010 to look at the carbon impact of car sharing, and it was significant because people who car share reduce their carbon footprint by a significant, I don't want to quote the number off the top of my head, but it was I don't want to get it wrong, but it was significant because people, when they start to car share, as opposed to have the car as the default mechanism, they report walking more, biking more, choosing healthier lifestyle. So they're taking fewer of those single occupancy trips because they're sharing. So there is a positive documentation of the impact of car sharing. So I'd point you to that study. It's by Susan Shaheen. It was put out in 2010 from UCal Berkeley.
So does the bike company see any role? I mean, that's doing.
Yes,
less
definitely.
work.
Yeah, what I think is that if you look at some European cities now, in Amsterdam, up to 60% of all commuting is done by bike. And we had a lot of people think that it always has been that way, but in the 70s we had definitely a strong government who decided to make separate bike lanes, and we started the bike sharing system in the 70s. and people started commuting by bike, and that was some sort of tipping point. Cars got used to bikes, and now bikes own the street instead of cars. And of course, that's what we like to show to the world, that it is possible for a city to get used to bikes.
Another thing at Car2Go that we've also been working on is electric cars. So we have an all-electric fleet in San Diego, and so we're working on how we can maybe use that on a broader scale.
We have time for, I think, one more question from the audience.
Car2Go bikes in Europe are electric, right?
Cars. Just in Amsterdam.
Oh, just in Amsterdam. Okay.
And Stuttgart as well.
Okay.
Okay, so if you can give a quickish answer on this, what is the role of government in enabling this new world? And have you been seeing either resistance or encouragement? I assume it varies by city, but of course. But particularly with car sharing, where you have to negotiate to get somewhere to put your cars. In some places, I think Los Angeles, right? Car2Go, you just launched in Los Angeles, right? And Los Angeles not being one city, it's many different cities, so you have to deal with lots of municipalities. Do you find that cities are now, have we turned a corner? They're like, yes, we want more of this, or is it an obstacle?
I think as a whole, for us, I'll speak individually. There's enough mass between the options for us specifically, just because we do look to take a piece of the public right away, which is very protected typically. It's much more of a dialogue now as opposed to kind of a sell. And how do we make it happen, as opposed to here's what we have, here's how it could look and how it works. So the door's opening. There's still old laws on the record, ordinances on the record that could be cleaned up and make the process longer. But certainly I think the officials are much more proactive from our experience.
Yeah, that's my sense, is that we've turned a corner and there's a big openness to this in most local municipalities, in part because it makes them look cool to have these new services. All right, in our last kind of lightning round ending, is there a new technology that you are watching, looking forward to? We heard self-driving car, but something else that you think we need to have on our radar? We could just go this way, since...
I'm really positive that innovation can increase bicycle safety. Both in cars, like outside airbags and more sensors, maybe speeds... that the car in the city cannot drive faster than, 30 miles an hour. So that kind of technology will improve safety on the street, and I'm very positive about that.
Of a governor switch inside of a car that caps it when it's in an area. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, Joseph.
Lightning round, final comments. First of all, come tonight to our launch party, right in the little white tent behind. It's what, 6:30, something like that tonight. Is that right, Rachel? 6 o'clock. Join us tonight.
All right, you got a party invite for showing up here.
Exactly. But the exciting thing that we're doing, that we're looking forward to, right now when you download the app, you just see single modes, like Alex said at the beginning. But we're excited because this fall we're going to be stitching them all together in a way that it will optimize the simplest way. I mean, you're already doing it manually. The fact that you're sitting in these red seats meant that you stitched together the route from wherever you woke up in your bed this morning to this spot, but you had a million different permutations and combinations of how you could have done it. Well, we've got 300 plus ride providers in our app, plus walking and biking, and we're going to stitch all those together for you. So no matter where you go in any city that you're in, you're just going to wake up, say, I want to go to Northside, and the optimal solution based on time or cost, whatever you prefer, based on the weather, is going to be out this fall. So we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah, and that's a hard puzzle to solve, so I look forward to it.
I'm looking forward to that too. I think one of the things we're excited about for within our business model is there is a lot in the, wait for it, parking industry that's going on. Nobody really thinks about parking as particularly sexy from a technology perspective, but there is quite a bit going on there that I think will help facilitate our business model in a great way, and also help us, with our mission is to enable simple and responsible urban living. So to the extent that we can get people parked and not swirling the block looking for parking and praying to the parking gods, the better we can do that, the easier we can do that, the better. So we're excited about that.
Great.
For us, it's a look at the reduction in your wallet. One less card to carry around, so accessing cars through smartphones.